was complex. Well, the world of 1945 was complex. The world of 2016 is intensely complex. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're going to be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders. You'll be dealing with politics and economics. And you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously.
Well, here we are, moving forward. Monday, August 22nd, 2016. I'm Scott Hensler here for Tinfoil Hat Club. Julie will be on here just a little bit. September, October, November, these are just around the corner. Winter here in North Idaho comes early. Those up in Canada, anyone in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania knows all that. And so what I want to talk a little bit about tonight is that, those who believe that they're going to get raptured out of here and all this stuff, this whole thing was a ploy, a plot to keep Christians, to stand them down, to keep those that should have been doing the work, the Great Commission, to do nothing. And this brainwashing, this lie, this facade has literally devastated this world, because it's us who've been given the power and authority with Christ who lives in us that should have been taking care of business, and that has not happened. Now, as the title here, pray that your flight be not in winter, okay, in Matthew 24. This is telling us that it is going to happen. Just pray that during winter, because if you're in the elements, we've talked about search and rescue, and I was in it, and there was a time in my life I couldn't think of doing anything else. I loved it. And when you come to hot weather, when you come to cold weather, it's absolutely devastating to an individual who's not prepared. Hypothermia very easily sets in even in the 60s. Now, when you have hypothermia, you literally have the opposite end of heat stroke. And what happens is your brain starts shutting down, you become lethargic, you can't think. And people actually think that they're becoming hot. And we have found many people, I have done this, that when we found them, they've expired and they didn't have any clothes on. They literally were trying to cool themselves down when in reality they were actually, their core temperature had dropped to a level they froze to death. Now, when we talk about tribulation, when we talk about those things, because Matthew continues on to that we're all going to be dealing with it. But the question is, are you prepared? Are you ready? Where are you in your walk? And those doctrines that have been basically shoved down our throats, the dispensation doctrines, those things that have come from the Zionist, have put us all in a position, or the mass position of those who profess to be Christians, that they're really not comprehending how bad things are going to get, and that they were called to do a job. Now, I'm going to keep bringing this up, and I'm going to keep bringing it up. Now we've taken, Tinfoil Hat Club and tried to form it more of a little bit of everything, but, all roads lead back to Christ. We can't get away from it. We don't want to get away from it. But we also don't want to scare off those who are offended by Jesus. And the reason that you are, and I'm just going to tell it to you straight, is that you have an Antichrist spirit in you. It is a spirit. It's a type of spirit. It's not it is a. And I had it. I was an enemy of God. Julie did too. And once you realize that this is in there, one of the reasons that, we have nerve endings that tell us that something is really hot or really cold is to protect us. Now, of course, in bad burns, that's a bad situation. But if you were to put your hand on a burner and didn't know that it was hot, then the damage would be far, far more. Well, what has happened is those nerve endings have been severed, and so you can't comprehend the danger you're in. You can't comprehend to pull your hand off the burner. That's an Antichrist spirit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Trying to put it into a thought that makes sense. Now, there's an order of things. Okay, God is a God of order, not a God of disorder. And so when something is out of order, then it isn't of God. And so these doctrines and occults and New Age and all this stuff is out of order. Now, there is some spiritual truth, probably more than in the mainstream Christian church, and Julie and I have talked about that. I just don't want to promote, because it gets so tainted, it gets so mixed up, that if you're not discerning, you can go down the wrong trail very, very easily. I did. And it isn't until you get things out like the Antichrist spirit, you get out the hindering, the blocking spirits, those deceptions, those lying spirits. Once you get them out, then you can start seeing how tainted the mainstream churches are, and that how corrupt the occults are, but in them are truths. Now, the question is to be discerning of the truth and reject the lies. Okay? That's the problem today, is that everything's all blended together. Julie's talked about duality. Been seeing a lot of that. And when we understand that when how many have been down to where you didn't have very much money, and you went through the cupboards and you found canned stuff, and you just basically made some kind of stew where you threw everything together. Any other time you wouldn't eat it, but now you're hungry. Well, as we get towards these days, that those who finally are waking up are going to be searching for things, and they're unfortunately going to be handed stew instead of the real meat, instead of the gourmet of God's Word. And that's what I am concerned about. And one of the biggest occults out there is quote, the mainstream church. I'm sorry. All these years, I've been trying to bring in deliverance, exorcisms, trying to heal those people, trying to get them to understand that these things coming, that you need to be spiritually ready. And if you are not, you'll fold, you'll cave, you'll be in harm's way. And so those seeking, those searching, and we've talked about like the Civil War with Mormonism, that's how it got a hold, because people were so broken and so wounded, they were willing to take anything. They were hungry for something that would feed their spirit, and that was just right for the picking. And, of course, that was by design of the evil one. And nothing has changed. Now, you got to remember, Lucifer is not a creator, he's a corrupter. Okay? So it's just a different day, same stuff, different day, and a different package. In fact, manufacturers spend a lot of money trying to determine what package best sells their product. From even times change, generations change. Okay, some of the products that are out there in the market were there when you and I were kids, and now they're in a different package, different box. Okay, I wanted to mention that I had someone visit me over the weekend, and I didn't talk to him whether about mentioning his name or not. But anyways, we took the time on Sunday to locate the Gwynn Tower in Spokane. I talked about that, and it was easy to find. And so I did go to it. I did take my equipment. I've got that thing called a man pack that has VHF, HF, full shortwave spectrum on it, and I'm capable of CW, lower sideband, upper sideband, FM and AM mods. And so we located it, took some pictures up close, and then backed off a little bit to analyze it. And though I never saw any data bursts or transmission out of it, there was obviously something on its frequency that was being sent to it. Now, there's a mode called frequency shift keying, and I think that's probably what it was. It was some kind of data. And so if it has a buffer, if it has a memory, depending on how they've configured it, it may have been receiving that, and then it sends it on. But that, I didn't want to be there all day. Wasn't sure of the neighborhood. A lot of people were probably wondering what we were doing. But what I wanted to confirm was that was it just sitting there transmitting? Was it just sending out the ELF or LF waves? Because it's supposed to be around 316 kilohertz, some are at 318. Some are down to 175, depending on where they're located. But this is the one they state it is. But it doesn't mean just because of the stats that are on the page. Because if you have an antenna tuner, the antenna tuners today, which are micro-controlled, meaning they can analyze the antenna, know whether it's a match or not, and then they put in the necessary components of inductors and capacitors to make almost any antenna load up or tune to whatever frequency. And so even though this is basically supposed to be in that range, because of antenna tuners, that thing could be anything. So, I'll probably go out again, but I wanted you to know that I did find it, I did locate it. Now, this is the ground wave emergency network, and it means that during the Cold War, they built these things all over the United States to be a communication of emergencies, to establish emergency. The big thing is the continuity of government. It isn't anything about saving your rear end. It's about them, the elite, the ones who think they are, above us, that regardless of what happens to them, they can just shake the dust off their feet where everyone else is starving and dying of diseases. That in this, the Navy, now I did notice the sign on there. In fact, there will be some pictures on the website there when you're watching Blog Talk. A couple of them will come up, and you'll see that it was actually under the Coast Guard, and that's kind of weird because originally it was established for the Navy. But again, this whole thing was to keep communications during nuclear war, nuclear fallout, or a EMP. Now, I've had people tell me that if there's an EMP that my equipment wouldn't work. Well, there you go. They think it will, and they spent millions of dollars putting it in back in the Cold War. But the question is now that since it's in that tunable band of mind control, of cyclotronics, then are they using this equipment for that technology? So my main goal when I went there was to make sure, to verify, was it transmitting all the time, which could put you into a stupor, which could put you into euphoria, which could put you into an anger situation, or just plain put you to sleep. It was not transmitting. Now, I'm sure they probably knew I was coming since I broadcast prior to that. Who knows, but it was not. So I just wanted everyone to know that, and I did locate it, so I'll be keeping an eye on it. And I did experience some really bad headaches after it. By the time I got back to Coeur d'Alene, because this was over in Washington below Spokane, I had to take an hour to rest from something. Something did hit me pretty hard, but as far as I know, it wasn't coming from that thing. Now, again, with the communication equipment that I'm talking about, you need to remember that landlines and cell phones will be turned off. So we're so used to having this that when it's taken away, the panic, the mayhem will be incredible. They just switch them off. This whole world goes back to the way it was, and it's not going to be pretty. Now, it's the same thing with GPSs. GPSs are encrypted, and they lifted that encryption for the military so the public could use it. TomTom, Garmin, some of these others, they jumped on board. I talked about Clinton. He lined his pockets with the agreement with the manufacturers to do that. And so when they go back, when they flip that switch and it goes back into military encryption, then our GPSs are going to be worthless. Okay? So the question is, what are you going to do about this? How are you going to call your loved ones? How are you going to call your kids? How are your kids going to get a hold of you? If you're at work, how are you going to get a hold of your spouse, right? Because when this hits, there's going to be chaos. There's going to be a release in the spirit realm of absolute confusion. I'll guarantee you. Okay, the demons are opportunists, and that'll be the perfect time for them to basically do what they do best, and that is to cause insanity. Now, in Acts 2:17 through 20, which is a reminder of Joel 2, dreams will increase. Now, I've been noting that people sending me emails are getting a lot more dreams. I'm dreaming more. I know other people are dreaming more. Okay, so in Acts 2:17 through 20, okay, God promises to pour out His Spirit on all flesh, on all flesh. Now, pour out His Spirit on all flesh. So I want you to listen about this, okay? But it does tell us that sons and daughters will prophesy, young men will see visions, and old men shall dream dreams. Then it goes on to say, and on my servants. All right, so there's a separation here. On all flesh, that can mean Christian and non-Christian. Okay, sons and daughters is not talking about his sons and not talking about his daughters. Because as we come down, then it says, and on my servants and my handmaids. Okay, a little difference there. That he will pour out the Spirit for prophecy. See, there's a separation. So we also see there's going to be wonders in the heaven. There's also going to be those things beneath the earth. And we will see, those things of blood and fire and vapor and smoke. I mean, this is not going to be a good time. And my point is that, where are you? Are you ready for the very fact that the sun will turn to darkness? The moon will turn to blood. Okay? Now, I want you to understand, too, that there is the day of the Lord, Acts 2:20. Okay? The day of the Lord. Now, that's when this takes place. That those who call in the name of the Lord will be saved. Those who call in the name of the Lord will be saved. Okay? So, are you ready for this situation? Are you spiritually ready? Okay? Now, you need to remember the Sabbath is the Lord's day. There's a difference. The day of the Lord, those things that take place in Revelation, like as mentioned in Acts 2:20, and then there's the Lord's day, which basically is talking about the Sabbath day, the day to take rest for the Lord. Okay, so just remember that there is a separation. And then we're reminded in Revelation 1:10 that John, when he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, okay, so he was just starting out in his visions, in his documentations, his writings. And so it wasn't the day of the Lord, it was the Lord's day, okay? Now, after the seventh seal is basically when that return comes, the day of the Lord, and Armageddon begins, all right? So those who think that you're going to get raptured out of here, those who think that they do not have to be ready for the Great Commission, to do the Great Commission, I appeal to you, please understand that we have a job to do. Now, with the technology that I was just mentioning earlier, with psychotronics, where does this all fit in? Because there's a timeline here. See, with October, there's information that October, November is going to be a time that things are going to that are going to change. We're potentially talking about martial law now. I know that people have talked about this for years and years and years, but things are different now. Things are in place. We've got the elections coming up. We've got things happening around the world. We've got the Antichrist spirit-filled individual called Obama, who's a very ancient being in himself, is going to be leaving office. Well, is he really? Okay, we've all wondered that. Now, he's a scallywag. He is the depths of Satan. No good is found in him. So this time coming is a very serious time, and that's why pray that your flight be not in winter, because you'll notice that what's coming up here just around the corner is winter. Now, obviously, as I mentioned in Matthew, it's going to happen. Just pray that it be not in winter. Okay? Now, so again, where does this all fit in with this technology, with everything coming? Because if you're sick, if you can't fight, if you're in a stupor, if you're in a position of apathy where you're not even going to care, what do we do? Well, again, coming back to Matthew, that those who are servants, those who are handmaidens, that as he pours out his Spirit, and I want you to be ready to be shown approved to receive it. Now, I told you there was a separation. that God's a God of order. Okay, talking about pouring the Spirit out on all flesh, but then makes a defined definition with His servants. I want you to be approved. I want you to be ready. I want your heart to be ready. I want you to forgive those people. I want you to forgive yourself. I want you to forgive God if you've been blaming God, because He's not the one in the problem here. You're in a war. You're in a battle. And you've bought into the lie thinking it's God's fault. Stop that. Because God plainly said that if you do not forgive, He will not forgive you. So as these days roll forth here, just be ready for whatever's coming. Okay? I'm a realist. Okay? I'm not trying to bring the fear of devastation. I'm trying to get you to understand who you are. If you believe onto Jesus, if you are a bondservant, you are bought with the price of the blood of Jesus. And you have not been given a spirit of fear. Now, things can worry us, things can bring us to a point, but we have to shed those things off and be still and know He is God. And understand that us as the children of God, that in that He is going to do something with us. The question is, are you ready? Can you be one who receives when He pours out His Spirit? That's what I want you to get at, all right? All right, Julie, I'm not going to go any longer, so I muted you there. And we didn't really get a chance to talk about what you were going to talk about, but, you've got your 2 cents, so go for it.
Well, when we were talking about the Antichrist spirit that you had, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood if you don't know any of this, because I kind of wanted this audience to be aimed more at people who did not know Jesus Christ, because I remember when I didn't know Him, and it all sounded so weird to me. It was like somebody was speaking, a different language when I'd hear this stuff. So what he was talking about is when I called on Jesus and the Spirit of God showed up in my kitchen and I was completely on the ground. You can't stand up in front of God. It's not going to happen. I mean, I was sitting on the floor. And I remember I just fell in love with Him right there. I knew who He was. Everything about me knew who He was. Even my body recognized. I mean, it's just like your DNA goes, oh, my gosh, it's the Creator. Well, after that, I was insanely crazy about Jesus Christ. I wanted to know everything about Him, and I just went crazy looking. And then I remember I would hear certain phrases or certain things, just somebody maybe talking about Jesus or God or whatever, and there would be just a tiny little part of me that would be like, what, kind of like anti-Christ kind of thought, just a sweeping little moment of that. And I thought, what is that? Why? I'm totally sold out to Jesus. Why is this happening to me? This is weird. And I never knew what it was, of course, because I didn't know anything about deliverance or any of that stuff. So this went on until I was delivered, and I had no idea. And when the person who prayed for me first, I told him, he wanted to know kind of like about my life. So when I was telling him all the stuff I was into, I'm sure he was going, oh boy, and I neglected to tell him that, okay? I forgot to tell him about that thing that would happen to me. Well, as it just so turns out, he knew that if I had been involved in witchcraft and, that sort of thing, necromancy, whatever, he knew that I would have that spirit. He already knew it. And now I know why he knew it, because now I know it. But when he called all these things out of me, that was one of them that he called out, but I didn't even know what it was. I still didn't know what Antichrist was and what it was supposed to do. So I remember about within 2 or 3 days, I kept thinking, wow, I should have felt like that by now, but it hasn't happened. I didn't have that little sweeping thought of Christ, and I was like, what's going on? So I got a hold of him and I said, that it's gone. And he said that was the Antichrist spirit. And I was like, oh, wow. And it was like, I have to tell you, I can still vividly remember just prior to me speaking to him on the phone, and just right after I hung up, I have to tell you, there was a lot of clarity in my mind that I did not have before. And I didn't realize that I had so much non-clarity in my mind. I just didn't realize how bad it was, right? So I have to tell you, if you have never had that done, if you've never been prayed over, I used to commune with demons all the time, okay? And I thought these were dead people, right? So I used to do that, but they're not dead people. They're demons, all right? The dead have two places to go, either or, and there's no other place, okay? That's just the way it works. But whenever somebody prays over you and those things leave you because they get attached to you and they've been in your family forever, they start to change the way you think and the way you feel. Scott, one of the most confusing things that ever happened to me was I would catch myself feeling really adamant about something one way, but then on the other hand, I'd say, well, but, you know, I could understand about that. Yeah, okay. And I thought, why do I have two separate opinions? And the same issue. And that used to drive me nuts because I'm like, I should be deciding on one or the other. It's not like, and I couldn't understand why I would have this two totally, opposing opinions on the same thing. Well, I found out that was called double-mindedness, and that's also a demon. Those are demons. So I felt like afterward, when I started learning about deliverance and demons, I started to learn about basically being a marionette. And that is because you are like a marionette with strings tied to you, and your heart and your mind and your opinions and your goals. And you don't know it, though. You have no clue. But you're being puppeted by these demons, and they are controlling your mind. Have you ever been so confused you sit down and start crying because you really don't know? You're just, I don't know what to do. I don't know. And you just sit there and go, I just can't make a decision. I don't know what to do. Well, these are demons that are actually doing this to you, and they're manipulating every feeling you have, only you don't know they're there and you don't know they're doing it. So I'm just explaining to people who may not know anything that he just said, because it sounds like Christianese, Chinese stuff to me. Before I knew Jesus, I would have been like out the door, now listening to that at all, because I wouldn't have understand anything he said. But if you don't understand, this is what he's trying to say. They do this to you, and you know what? You won't even know. You'll have no clue. I did not know they were there, had no clue. But afterward, I can tell you, I went from, kind of not concentrating on the same thing or being, kind of having, it's just you're not thinking as clear, and you'll start to think about something, and something else will come in and like another thought and knock that one out of the way. But you really need to go back to what you were on. But then this one comes. And it's all these things that you just don't even consider until you're in your quiet moments by yourself. And you're trying to finish, I don't know, a thesis that you're supposed to be working on for forensics, and you can't get it done because your mind is going back and forth. So that's the kind of stuff that I would say would really help you, is that you can be extremely clear, and nobody doesn't have these influences. Nobody. Everybody has them. Trust me. I've been doing this now for a while. Yes, exorcism. And everyone has tons of ancestral spirits that come with your line. It's just come passed down. As a Native American, I have a bunch. So I'm just saying, try it, and, call me, call Scott, whatever. And if you don't know who Jesus is, he's not the person that you hear about in any church on the face of the earth. None. He's totally separate and totally different. And you say, well, I've read that book, and it's vicious, and that God of that book wants to kill everybody. Actually, if you read it without all the influences of the demons, you will actually understand the book. The only reason you don't understand it, or you think the God in there is vicious, is because of the demons. And they pervert your reality. They pervert every word you hear. Have you ever told somebody something and they come back and say, whatever, and you say, that's not what I said. I didn't say that. Yes, you did. No, I did not say it. You swore up and down. You did not say that. But they didn't hear you say what you said. They twisted it. And you know a lot of people will twist your words and give them back to you. And you have to continue to restate the words over and over because they just, within seconds, they'll go right back to what they thought you said. So that's what demons do. They pervert the little words that you see in the Bible. They pervert the storyline. And I don't know how they do it, but they do, because they did it to me. And I started to read this book like a book, a novel. And what I started to see is there was rhyme and reason, and he didn't go around killing anybody. That wasn't the point. He actually gave people tons of chances that were rotten people, like in Nineveh, rotten. And these people were bad, but they didn't know who he was, so he gave them a break. But the ones he did kill, they weren't even human. Okay, understand, they were a race of giants and their offspring that were evil, and they were killing people. Before the flood, they ate every living thing off the face of the earth, and then when they couldn't find anything else to eat, they started eating all the people. That's who God had Joshua and them go in and take out, was those guys that were eating humans. Okay, so there's stories like that you're not going to read and understand exactly what's going on, and you're going to say, wow, this is a genocidal maniac, God. I thought the same thing. I honestly did. But when you start to get to know and understand why those things happen, you'll say, oh, he was protecting us humans from those psycho giants that were eating humans. See? So just a word, Scott, about the way that demons try to pervert your thinking when you're reading that book, because they did it to me, and I would read things and take it all wrong. I'd be like, oh, well, he sounds really cruel. I would take it wrong. You see, the spirit under which I was reading it was not me. It was a demon trying to pervert the meaning of the entire book so that I wouldn't see it in the way that it was meant for you to read it. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that people would understand that it's the demons that change your whole perception about just about everything in life, you know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know that there was a time that I needed to be deprogrammed from myself. Someone had asked, I had a situation over the weekend, or Friday, I should say, of somebody that's extreme schizophrenic, and he's on the streets here, and I finally made first contact with him on Friday. And a lot of people are kind of scared of the guy, and it's understandable. But I know that there was a time that when I was going through deliverance or prior to it, I had a mindset. And I'm bringing this up because somebody who was talking to me about this individual that was on the street, I mentioned that, you know, I work with people like that, but in extreme circumstances when somebody's this far, it's very difficult to bring them out. And they had kind of a perplexed look on their face, and I said, because it's who they have become. Okay, do you understand? So it isn't just that they have schizophrenic demons, you know, post-traumatic stress and all these other things. It becomes who they are. And because the person has not received deliverance a long time ago, or, you know, basically cursed from the womb, and so his whole life was, you know, one disaster after another, and he just kept getting split and split and split, eventually they're that bad. Now, we see that, too, with the demoniac. But we have to understand that in order for someone to be healed, they have to desire to be healed. Now, Julie and myself, when we came to this understanding, we had a drive within us. We wanted to be free. We wanted to know the truth. We searched. We did those things necessary that was also showing God that we deserved that healing because we went after it. And I've mentioned it before that a lot of people that I've worked with over the years there's been a rejection of the word, or a rejection of the truth in it. What I mean is that they want the bad things to stop happening, and then they want to go back to business as usual. And that's not the way it works. Once you've dedicated yourself in, now you got to remember, demons don't just back off. Okay? Some people think, well, when I get delivered, I'm never going to have problems. No, sorry, it doesn't work that way. You're in a battle, you're in a fight. Okay? Until the return, we're told to keep those things, the return of Christ. And so when someone needs delivered, meaning and wanting are two different things. They may want the problems to stop, but they're not willing to devote themselves in order to keep it. Okay, just because you've been given deliverance, it's your job to keep it. Let me see, like patents. I don't know if you know this or not, but when you receive a patent, it's not like there's patent cops that protect your patent. It's actually your job. When you see someone infringing on it, when you see somebody using it without your consent or the agreement that you had and they violated it, it's your job to go after them with the law behind you. It isn't like you call them and then they come and take care of business. That's not the way it works. So once too much has been given, much is expected. And that means that once you receive something, then in order to maintain it, because that's the other thing the false church has taught, that once you've been saved, always saved, or whatever they want to bring out, that's a lie. You've got to keep it. It's because it's worth. It has worth. And anytime you have something that has worth, there's going to be others who want it. There's going to be others who want to take it away from you. I mentioned before when I went through law enforcement training, one of the things that was, brought into our understanding that when you stop a criminal, you get a call and there they are breaking in the house, they literally believe, now I'm talking about someone who is a criminal, they literally believe, how dare you stop me from committing this crime? They literally believe they have a right to do what they're doing. And whether it's an officer or whatever the deal is, that's why some you end up in a very heated situation, and maybe even an officer's life is threatened because this individual, for one, is not going to go back to prison. Chances are they've already been to jail, been to prison, and they will do whatever it takes to keep from going. And if that means killing the officer, then that's what they're going to do. So we have to understand that out in that world that there are spirits, there are demons that literally think that same way. Because in the power and authority given to us with Christ living in us, we literally can send them to the pit. And many of them have been in families and in generations for so long, they believe that they have a right and they will fight you to the death. And many people who call themselves Christians, those who think they are bondservants, are not even up for the fight. They don't believe they need to fight. They think it's already been given to them, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's a lie that they've been taught. And so they're in situations where they're not capable of dealing with it. One of the things about boot camp in the military is as hard as it sounds and as bad as it looks, and everything else, the whole point is to make you tough, to get you ready for the real stuff that's coming. Because if you're not, you're not just going to lose your life, you're going to be the reason why the others lose their life. And when you have a partner that is a patrol partner and you've gotten to know each other, your lives depend on each other. You know that your partner has your back. So how many out there can literally say that their spouses have their back? How many friends can you say that they've got your back? And I'm talking about what's coming. We've talked about the brown shirt spirits, meaning that there's those who will be willing to sell you out, that will throw you under the bus. They would sell their own mother. And those are the ones you do not want to be around. This is part of the discernment of getting from the Lord to separate yourself from such people. Even Jesus said, "Who is my brother?" Okay? Meaning, who is going to be there in these times. So just be aware that the battle that we're in is over the mind. Because in your mind is where your fear is where your anxieties, your depression, the feeling of hopelessness, the ability to sit still and know He is God, to have a peace. Okay, so when I pray for people and I anoint them, I pray for them to have the mind of Christ, and that knowing who they are in Christ, that those things that have been put into their brains, the witchcraft that has their noggin, so to speak, that these bewitching spirits are released. Their claws, their hooks are no longer in your brain. Julie and I were talking again today about being hoodwinked. So you can be, and how many, we've all had this. We believed something, and then we found out later on it was a complete lie. Whether it's at work, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's at school, whatever the situation is, when you find out that it's a lie, it's like, man, how did I believe that? Or like when you find out you've got a cheating spouse, and the whole time you believed in them. And then you just go, wow, but then as time goes on, you go, well, you know what? I actually did see the signs. There were indications. Now I understand what that was or what that meant at that time. And so over time, the pieces of the puzzle come together. That happens all the time. So the point of it is to be vigilant, to be ready for the understanding that there's a whole realm out there that wishes your demise, that wants destruction upon you. And so those sitting in the pews in these mainstream churches do not understand that concept. When we see that many will fall away, I believe it is because those will think that God abandoned them, when in reality they did not prepare themselves as they were told to do in the Great Commission. So when I talk about spirits, reminding you that there are many spirits. In Scripture we talk about lying, deceiving spirits. We talk about witchcraft. We talk about spirits of infirmity, spirits of insanity. Those things that would keep us from being who God intended us to be. But in that classification, then are subclasses. And so when I pray for someone and I lay hands on them, I don't just particularly call the spirit that I'm getting the word on to cast out. I'm also binding them to those that are above them and then those who are below them. So when I'm casting out one, I'm casting out many. It's the same thing with demoniac. Now, obviously, the demoniac wanted a healing. Okay, if you remember, he came running to Jesus. Okay, now the spirits also called out and said, "What do you have to do with us, Most High God? Okay, have you come here to torment us before our time?" But the bottom line is, when it was all over, he was clothed, because once he was not. He was a cutter. He was crying out. He was a classic example of extreme mental illness. But now he was clothed and found in his right mind, because he was seeking the deliverance, and therefore he was granted it. For those who knock, Christ answers. And so that's just something we strive for. And once we have it, we need to understand that it's a gift. We need to understand that someone else wants it, quote, Lucifer, fallen angels, demons, and we need to hold on to it. We hold on to it through obedience. We hold on to it through understanding who we are, and that we are treasured, we are loved, we are a jewel in the eye of the Most High God. We have worth. And in that understanding, then our hope is restored. I also pray for people, too, that when they've been beat up for a long time, that their countenance is brought up. So I'll pray something simple that the lamp or the light that's been quenched in them is like taking the lamp out from underneath the basket that's been hiding that light and place it back in their eyes, that they have the restoration and the countenance restored of the love of Christ in them. So when people see them, then they know they have God. But here's the other important thing. They also have peace. Now, I can remember a little over a year ago, I was ministering to a gal in a very bizarre situation at an artist studio, a photography studio, and the girl who had had a couple of drinks came in. I was doing some video editing for a friend of mine, and these people came in unexpectedly. They weren't. I wasn't. I would not have met them otherwise. Well, she immediately saw me, and she literally came to me at my feet, and she started crying. And she said, "You have it, don't you? I want what you have. I can see it in you." It was an amazing situation. And it's just, it's so sad to see how bad people are messed up. But the point of it is, she wanted it. She now saw it. And so there was a time that I was broken. There was a time I was wounded. There was a time that I was thrown away by the demons. They wanted to kill me. And so it was through the grace of God, through His Son, and the power of the Holy Spirit that I overcame these things. But I overcame them because I was not going to allow evil to prevail. I was not going to let it happen. And so at that point, I put on the full armor of God, Ephesians 6. I drew the sword of the Spirit, and I charged. Okay? So battles aren't won because someone retreats. Battles are won because there's an advancement. Do you understand? And these last days are called for us to do that. So I was going through some of the stuff on the internet today, and we know that, Hillary Clinton, I call her the spitting cobra because of the hole in her tongue, and I don't believe it's from the actions of lesbianism. I think that this is part of her clonism. And Trump. Now, when we understand that these people have nothing to do with humanity, when I say humanity, I'm talking about those things that bring worth, those things that bring life given to us through our Most High God. These are people of destruction and deception and lies. And so anyone that believes onto these people, then you have literally an antichrist spirit. I want you to understand that. That means that your discernment has been injured. Your discernment has been stolen. You're incapable of knowing the truth because you've been bewitched. Now, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm doing the curse of the Freemasons upon America, and demonstrating what's really in those curses when these gentlemen and women who come into these and take their oaths, the hoodwink that's placed upon them, the bewitching, the lies that are instilled into their brains, that many of these people who have done this for over time, as I mentioned for that man that was schizophrenic, it has become who they are. So there's a time of restoration. I've mentioned before about consecration. What that means is when you strive forth, when you move forth, then as the old man is removed, okay, and these things are taken away from you, then you need to fill yourself up with the Lord. And in that, then you're ready for the next level. Because you're not going to go to the next level because, many of the so-called doctrines out there will deny the fact that a Christian can have a demon because they say light and dark cannot inhabit the same place. Well, you know what? That's exactly true. But what it's telling us that many people are full of darkness, and therefore the Holy Spirit light does not come in. So it's our job, it's our responsibility given to us to remove that darkness and replace it with light. See how they've twisted that doctrine? And by that, many people are in bondage. So again, once those things are established, or let me say this: once those things are understood, that there is a job to do, There's a goal to achieve, and that God doesn't want to keep you in the same place. He wants you to advance forward. You know, one of the things I noticed about the mainstream church, let me point this out. I've got no problem bashing them anymore, and that is because, one, they're there because of Zionism. The whole thing's a lie, and in the basis of those people who have put this together is Masonry. Okay, they're all Masons. Masons go all the way. Masons still meet to have their monthly meeting in Israel. They go, down into the caverns. They go down in the underground, and they go into these rooms, and they still do their thing. And what they're doing is that they're setting the stage for the next level or the next event of evil to be released. That's what they're doing. So as we move forth, we understand that evil is there, and we do not allow them to become who we are. So again, like this individual who is dealing with schizophrenia, and those who call themselves Masons that have put themselves up in the 32nd, 33rd degree, that has become who they are, because their conscience has been seared. Okay, they've been so full of antichrist spirits and lying spirits, and then the hoodwink of the oath that they took that became a curse upon them, then they cannot see truth. And because they cannot see truth, they are a detriment to everybody in this country. They are the reason this country is in the position that it is in, because these are the leaders, these are the governors, these are the mayors, these are the chief of polices, and those that are sheriffs. Those in the committees. They're Masons. They're Eastern Stars. They've sworn to Lucifer. Baphomet is their god. And because of that, that is who America has become. And because it is that, then the New World Order, those Rothschilds there in Israel, then use us as dogs to go into other countries to bite, to maim, to kill, to steal, to destroy. And that curse comes back on us. So anyone who didn't think that isn't what's happening, just take a look around you. And see, again, God calls us to come out of her, okay? And that means to separate ourselves. We may be in the world, but we are not of the world. And that was something that I had to learn, something that I had to face because of the things that I was involved with, the things that I had done. I become an enemy of God, and it was because of the Antichrist spirits that kept me from understanding who Jesus was. The lying, deceiving spirits, the witchcraft spirits kept me from understanding the truth. And in that deception, I was an enemy of God. But through the grace, through the blood of Jesus, then I have been redeemed. But I had to make a choice. And if I had become what Lucifer wanted me to become, okay, then I would have been separated. I would have been seared away from God, my conscience seared. And so I just thank you, Jesus, for what you did, that in my time that happened. But ladies and gentlemen, it was still a choice. Okay, we still make a choice. I make a choice every day who I'm going to serve. I know. But don't for a moment think that you can't be deceived, because in the last days, if it were possible, many would be deceived with the great falling away. So just understand that. So, all right, Julie. Yeah, we got plenty of time. Go ahead with what you got.
Everything you said was just dead right on. You can be deceived, and I'll tell you, Scott, it really sets me back to see people that deceived. And, you can talk to someone that from a church that seems like a nice person, but I ask you, I want you to go and talk to them about something like the Zionism. Go mention it to them and and tell them the Jews aren't chosen. See how fast they just start doing backflips. I mean, they will have a cow right there on the ground. Get ready. Because they're going to spit out kittens. They will spit you in the face because they have given up their own birthright, and they've already said, I'm not part of the chosen crowd. Well, God's like, all right, so you're not part of the chosen crowd. All righty, then you chose to hang with him, then I guess that gets to be your people. And Paul actually said that anyone who believed in that doctrine was into witchcraft and was cursed by God. That's what the Bible says, that if you believe in that Zionism doctrine, that you are into witchcraft and you are cursed by God. So if you believe in that, you have a curse from God. This isn't a curse from your ancestors doing something stupid, okay, like I did, and my kids would have had those curses on them because I was talking to demons, okay? That's bad enough. You're going to have a curse by the creator of the universe. Hello? I mean, like, seriously, from the creator of the universe. He speaks a curse over you. That's pretty scary. So if you believe in that doctrine and you go read, and how many people have I read all of that and had them sit and read it and shown them, and they still can't see it, even though it doesn't say if they bless you, I'll bless Israel. If they curse you, I'll curse Israel. Doesn't say it. Doesn't have that word in there at all. They still will not let go. So they're under a curse, see, and they would rather believe the lie. So guess what happens to them? It's called a strong delusion, where they can't believe the truth anymore. They get to believe the lie because they chose the lie. See, that's what he said. You have a choice, and that's exactly what Scott's talking about. You have a choice. No matter what you want to believe, you have a choice. One leads to life, the other leads to death. And before you start latching on to some belief system that somebody told you, I personally, were I you, not lay all my eggs in the basket saying the pastor standing up there in the pulpit who's probably on the payroll of the New World Order. Actually, if he's a pastor in any mainstream church, he actually is on the payroll because they all take money from the government. So anyway, that you're going to have some dude up there that does not have your best interest at heart, that really does not, oh, he loves us. No, he doesn't. He would throw you under the bus. In fact, guess what? He's going to throw you under the bus. As soon as they start their New World Order, take the guns, whatever, they are going to tell you, your pastor is going to tell you to give up all your guns, go with the government, do what they say. They are there to pacify the panic and to get you to go along with, right? That's what they're there for. So you will be traded in. You will be thrown under the bus. So get ready for it if you want to put your stock in that. Personally, I put all my eggs in the same basket, but it's Jesus Christ. And you know, Scott, when the day that the Spirit of God literally showed up in my kitchen, I had a choice. God did not sit there, and it wasn't like I had to go with him. But I'm going to tell you something. If you ever stand in the presence of the Creator of the universe, you won't even know how to say anything except, oh, my goodness, on your knees. I mean, you can't stand up. I don't know how anybody could stand when you're in the presence of God. I literally was on the floor, Scott, and I was crying, and I had all these things I'd done my whole life that I didn't even know made him mad or even know grieved him. It was all running through my head, and I felt so bad because I saw that I hurt him. Like he created me, and I was doing things that actually grieved him. And I thought, oh my gosh, you could not do it. I'm telling you, you'd have to have a heart made of the hardest stone on the world to be able to stand in front of the presence of the Creator and just do nothing. But I mean, you just have to, because when he does show up, you will know who he is. Your DNA will actually cooperate, and you know, you're going to salute your commander in chief. Okay, so my advice is to call on him, and if you don't have sincerity to know the truth in your heart, don't bother. Don't bother. He's not gonna. You know what? God resists the proud. He resists the proud. If you think you know everything, and that's almost everybody that walks into those churches think they know everything. Oh, I know it all. No, I'm so sorry. You're the most uneducated people I've ever met. I know people with a third-grade education that are smarter than you. Okay? So you really intend to know the truth, and you are pure of heart, and you really do want to know, he will come, and he will show you. And you know what? At least if you do that, then you'll know for sure. You can still make a choice to say no. I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. When I realized who he was and what I was standing in front of, to know that there really is a Jesus Christ, because that's the name I used, by the way. And I addressed the creator of the universe, the one who created everything, the one in that book, the King James Version. I said, the guy in the book, the one that's in the book that was written about, that guy. Are you that guy? That's who I called on, and he showed up. So that told me right then and there, hey, I called on demons, and they showed up quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I called on the other side, and guess what? He showed up. And I knew what I was standing in front of. You will know, my friend. You will know. And your cells in your body will know. Everything recognizes its creator. So it's only your heart and the condition of your heart, which if it's full of demons, they can make you think differently. So I would just give it a whirl, try it out. Hey, you've got nothing to lose, okay? You got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And if you figure out and he shows up and he is who he says he is, the Spirit of God shows up, guess what? You can jump on that rock, you see, in that lifeboat, and you're going home. See, he doesn't want you to go to church and, oh, you have to be a good person all the time. And if you do anything wrong, oh, you can't say, oh, my God, and don't do this and don't do that. And, oh, you're going to go to hell. Oh, my God, you're going to go to hell. Oh, no. That's not Jesus. Jesus made you. All he wants is for you to come home. He wants you to come home. He doesn't want anybody to die. He wants everyone to come home. Right? He came down here to rescue you. You know what my daughter says? She's a kid. She says, Mom, why would anybody say mean things about Jesus Christ and hate him? And he came down here and endured all that torture and was crucified on a cross. And that's just archaeological and scientific, historical fact. So you can't even argue. That's in the secular history books, okay? So she said, how could they hate somebody that was willing to die for them? She says, that's crazy, Mom. And I said, yeah, it is. She could not understand why anybody would say anything bad about someone who was willing to lay their life down for the rest of humanity. See, here's what a lot of you don't understand. The demons are running around like crazy right now. Fallen angels, all these creatures, and most of them are disgusto looking, okay? They're running around, and all they care about is keeping you from knowing the truth. You know what a demon said one time? One girl was getting delivered, and the demon said about her best friend, okay, whose name was David. The demon said, David is deceived. Ha, 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 ha. He thinks, he was in the New Age. He believes that we are God. He's deceived. Ha, 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 ha. And the demon's laughing because he's thinking this guy's deceived. Ha, ha, ha. You know, so if you are into that New Age and you think that you're getting Jesus Christ, you know, communing with God or whatever, and you get that euphoric feeling, that's a demon, and he's laughing at you because he can make you feel like the most peace and joy you've ever known. Oh, yeah, he can just make you think all that. But whenever Jesus shows up, the Holy Spirit shows up and indwells you, that will be the most peace and not happiness. There's no happy there. It's a soulful joy. It's a joy in your bones, a joy that you actually know your Creator, and you actually can speak to Him, and He will be there for you. So just give it a try, because, you know, Scott, we have to make choices every day. And some choices are very vital to our well-being. You know, we have to do things that are, you know, that sometimes are really hard choices, but we have to make them. This, I would say, would be the mother of all choices. This is it. and we're very soon to be going down a road that shall never be traveled back. You'll never be able to, there's no do-overs, okay? There's no do-overs. You know, you get one of your friends and you say something you shouldn't say, you go back down that road. I'm so sorry, I have a big mouth sometimes. There's no do-overs here, okay? This is it. There's no second chance. So just be sure, if you don't know who he is, I would advise you to be sure, you know, just go and try. And if you need somebody to talk to, you can call me, because I'm willing to help anybody I can, unless my phone is out. Like, you know, I've had problems with it all day because it's been storming really bad here, flooding everywhere. So if you try to get a hold of me and it didn't work out, just remember our weather is, people are running around in boats down here right now. And I hear Baton Rouge is bad too, Scott. There's a lot of people that are flooded out of their homes. One being Tony Perkins, who I don't know how I got on his mailing list. I have no idea. But he's with the Family something Research Council, and he's always sending emails about they're trying to do this and put the Christians out and pass laws against the Christians. And I don't know how I got his mailing list, but I did keep it so I could look and see what he was saying. And he was saying that gay people get judged and that natural disasters come to punish the gay people. Well, he lived in Baton Rouge, and his home got flooded out, and he lost his home. So I guess, Tony Perkins, are you gay? Is that why you got punished for, you know, whatever? God is not punishing a specific person. He's punishing a nation, and this is not him, by the way. God doesn't jump in this fracas until, you might want to read Revelation about halfway through. That's when God jumps in the fracas. He's not involved in this. Everybody keeps blaming God for everything. I say, alto, stop it. God doesn't cause natural disasters. He doesn't cause earthquakes. That would be Lucifer and his minions causing all these storms. It's called HAARP, man-made technology, man-made storms. And any state that takes a stand against whatever the, you know, government's trying to do, the Luciferians are trying to do, they punish them by flooding their state. Well, Louisiana's done that a lot. I used to live down there. I know how they are. And so they're getting them back. Texas did it and said no on the gun thing, and now they're getting Texas back. So remember, this is not God. He's not punishing this nation. This is Lucifer, okay? And he's allowing this to happen. But if you are his, I'm telling you right now, he will lead you out if you pray to him. He said, pray that you may be accounted worthy. So there is a way out. Don't say there isn't. And to any of us who may not be getting out, I may end up being at the top of somebody's hit list. I'm sure I am. And I have to die for my faith. Well, if that's the way it is, I say what Jesus said in the Garden of Gethsemane when he was praying, and I just say thy will be done. That's where I go with it, you know. I ask that I can be counted worthy to escape all these things coming, but nevertheless thy will be done. Whatever glorifies God, that's all I care about. It's that he is made number one. And all the people that have ever said words against him, bad words on him, or defamed him and soiled his name, or any of that, I want to make his name look good. And I want to be the one that if I have to go out like that, at least they say, well, she must really love him, and I don't know why anyone would die for someone who's not real. So that's what I care about. But, you know, Scott, there is a lot of flooding. I would suggest if anybody wants to pray for these folks that are being flooded out. Unfortunately, a lot of people who don't have a lot of means end up living in the flood zones because it's cheaper, and they end up losing things. So maybe we should pray for them too. But I 100% agree with the choice thing. And I wanted to say another thing that really upset me that I saw. And this message is to Mike Pence, you lying sack of dog backyard mess. Let me tell you, you have raped and you have killed more children. And let me see, you like the boys better than the girls. If I remember correctly, I have to get those numbers again, how many you're at now. Let me see, boys better than girls, and you choke them to death as you're having sex with them. Is that how it works, Mr. Pence? Yeah, that's it. That's what you do. By the way, he's saying that he's pro-life and he's not going to apologize for it. Mr. Pence, I call you to this moment as a liar. You are a liar and you are fake, and you, if the public only knew how many little boys especially you have sodomized and you have strangled while you're having sex with him. You know what? You are not. Your name is not going to be glorified. I will do everything I can to tell people what you truly are. You are not. You are not anything but a murdering, raping pedophile. And by the way, folks, he's not even human. He's reptilian. What is that, 38%? You're not human. And see, I think I got your percentage right, too. And if that is right, I think it's 38%. You are not even human. And you are possessing a body and in a hybrid body that you can cloak yourself in so that no one knows. See, all of you guys are hybrids. You're not human. By the way, folks, you better get on board with the whole idea of understanding that our technology is far further down the road than anything you could ever imagine. Now, folks, I walked on the dark side for a very long time, and I'm telling you, coming on this side, I'm going to tell everything I know. And one thing I know for sure is these people are not human. You better get it in your head. They're not human. They are hybrids and or full-blood reptilians who have a little gizmo that they push, and you see a human, but they're not human. That's their technology. So, by the way, Scott, I thought I'd bring that up because Mr. Mike Pence said he made a comment on CNN, of course, that he's pro-life and he's not going to apologize for it. Well, you're pro-death and you're a raping, murdering pedophile, and I'm not going to apologize for it because you know and I know that's what you are. And your wife knows too, and she had a chance to do something about it, and she started going along with it because she didn't want to lose her home and all her money. And furthermore, you killed Tory Smith. You're the one that made sure his life is over because he knew the truth about you as well, and you took him out. Well, he didn't have Jesus Christ, Mr. Pence. He didn't have Jesus, but I do. My father is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You'll never be able to even touch him. He will protect me, and on the day he doesn't, I will go home. So that's Scott. He came out and said that, and I was absolutely sick because people are going to believe him, a reptilian, you know?
I did see that. I wanted to go back to Job, that those things that are happening, that it is not God. But we have to know that there are areas that are cursed that are not under the protection because of the disobedience. Now, we see this in Deuteronomy 28:15 through 68. Let me just read this. But it shall come to pass, if you do not obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you today, that all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. And it just goes on, but being defeated by your enemies, cursed in the city, cursed in the country. In fact, when I pray for people, I actually bless them in the city and I bless them in the country. Confusion, consumption, boils, tumors, and even for the aliens among us to rise above us. Just a few of the things that when you are on the wrong side, what happens? Now, those are curses from the Lord. But you can also be under the circumstances where the demons are coming in, which is also, they're allowed to come in because you're in disobedience. So there can be those things that they do, because a curse is actually carried out by the spirits, period. All right? Now, I wanted to address, too, clergy. I'm going to be doing a little more work on that. But, Romans 13, I've read NIV, and then I read the New King James, or the King James right after, to show you that it had been rewritten to place your faith into the government, when in reality it's actually those things we look upon for God. Now, the FEMA clergy are not clergy. Okay? They're not men of God. They are paid programmers to go out and deceive those who call themselves Christians. Those who have joined the 501c3, those who have been in that particular classification for their tax status, I will not do it, have surrendered their God-given right for the truth, meaning that those things that even if they didn't agree, will never speak against. So again, when you have the truth that is suppressed, then the only thing left is a lie. So what else do you do? Well, again, we repent. We understand that what we did is wrong, and we come out and we make things right. Now, I understand that NSA's got their hands full again with another potential whistleblower. So we're going to watch a little bit and see how that works out. There's enough information out there now for everyone to comprehend that the government does not have our best interest in mind, that they are run by a shadow or another country, hence those of the New World Order. But here we are in this country with nothing other than, the alternate medias like we are that are trying to tell you this. But in the grand scheme of things, the numbers are so low. But, we're doing the best we can to present this information and for you to make your own decision who you're going to serve. So when Julie talks about whether it's Pence or whoever, the fact of who they are. Remember, I mentioned that him being of that lineage, the hybrids, that he's already cursed. Do you understand? He can't be redeemed. He can't be saved. He's like one of those in the Old Testament that God said to come in and destroy them, because their DNA is corrupt. It's corrupt all the way back to the seed of Satan. And it's a little more complicated when we look at today with those things, dimensional, interdimensional, those things from other places, how they're coming in. That's why we're telling you that many of the books that would have told us these things have been removed. We've talked about the 66 books. They're laughing in our face. Just reading the Book of Enoch is an eye-opener. I first read it in 2000 when somebody during a conference at a Bob Larson seminar asked, where did demons come from? And he just said, read the Book of Enoch. So I went home and found it on the Internet and read it and was floored. I could not believe what I was reading. And I thought, how can this not be a part of the canons? And I find out later on that it was. And it was taken out in 400 A.D., and is with the Dead Sea Scrolls. So again, the deception that has been upon everyone, I don't care who you are, this has been a major lie, because Satan goes around, deceiveth the whole world. And so that's all of us. But it's us who come to this understanding that pulls us out. Now, again, I want to go through what I went through before, but, man, it's a full-time job. It's just a full-time job. Every time we look at something on the Internet, we have to verify it again. One thing about what God does is that He'll verify. If you get a word, okay, like for instance, let me bring this up. Many out there that have been serving the Lord that are, let's say, males, and they're single, then a Jezebel will come along, one who has witchcraft, and they'll come and present themselves as a potential future wife for the man of God. And they'll say, God spoke to me and said that I am to be your wife. Well, okay, then the guy that she says this to, has the Lord spoken that to him? Maybe she's extremely attractive or has something that he desires, and so he lets his guard down, thinking, well, it must be from the Lord. And he goes with it, and then, within a very short time, he's absolutely destroyed. See, there needs to be verifications. You need to verify things. You need to get a word from somebody else, and be very careful about who you get your counseling from. Okay, you can have those that, again, are in that mindset. Put it this way: ladies and gentlemen, there are what we call man-hater demons. There are what we call woman-hater demons. And people can have these demons, and so let's say women that then come together and they're gossip and everything else, and men do it too, I get it. But then they confirm each other, misery loves company, and so they commiserate with each other, they unite with each other, and what it's really going on is in the spirit realm, they've basically formed a pack, hence the wolf pack, and so they go about destroying people. And not just men, women can be brought into that too. And I've mentioned before that many of you had a mate picked out for you that the Lord had, and they were either lost in abortion, okay, if you're 30, 40 years old, you may have lost the one that God really had for you, and or that particular person was tainted, was destroyed as a child, fractured, broken, and wounded, and because this so-called church didn't do what they were told to do, then they were never delivered. They were never set free. And you can end up in relationship with the one that was supposed to be meant for you, and it not work out well because they were never delivered. And how sad that is, because it's the simplicity of being released is there for all of us. A wound in the soul is a fracture in the mind, and when you're fractured, you're incapable of bringing together the whole awareness of you, being able to comprehend, being able to process, being able to analyze, being able to lay out the order of things that truly make up who you are. Now, if you're anxious, if you're desperate, if you're in a situation where you will sell yourself out, you'll circumvent the truth to be gratified by something, nothing good comes of it. And we've talked before, the demons are always in the detail. Satan's in the detail, Lucifer. And so you're getting set up constantly. And again, it's with everybody. It doesn't matter whether they're a profession, Christian or not. It happens to everybody. The demons are equal opportunists in hating all of us. They hate all of us. And I've mentioned before that, regardless of how old you are now, our audience, I'm sure, is 20 and above, then, there was a time you were a child. And when you were a child, you were a specific target of the enemy to break you, to put you into a spiral downhill your whole life. And by the way, many people that would have had their mates, the one that God that intended, they may have committed suicide. They were driven to a point of insanity and in despair with hopelessness, and then comes isolation. And that isolation, the demons just take them down like a pack of wolves, and they end up killing themselves. I sent some information out to somebody today that was in relationship or married to somebody that had borderline personality disorder, and that their spouse, I call it passive suicide, and or they just commit suicide. But either way, in time they perish, and the remaining spouse, who was most likely the victim in the first place, the second victim, meaning that the devil doesn't play fair. He'll bring someone that's very broken and full of witchcraft, and in it both people perish because of the behaviors that are inflicted on both, that are heartbreaking, that are devastating to your soul. And so the remaining spouse that may have pulled out of it didn't pull out of it. They're in a toxic shame and guilt of thinking that they did something wrong, that there could have been more that they could have done, when in reality it was beyond their pay grade. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is so entrenched, so deep, the depths of Satan, that most people cannot deal with it. This is the example of Jezebel. Jezebel was broken as a child, most likely because of the sex prostitutes and those things during from her lifestyle, and most likely her too being of that, and the ceremonies and all the things. She was fractured, she was broken, she was satanic ritually abused to the point of who she is. And so she had multiple personalities, she had altars, she had all that fragmentation that Satan, Lucifer, uses as destruction, and hence we call it Jezebel. And I've made the connection with Jezebel and those of borderline personality disorder. So those who are victimized, those are the non-borderlines, I say, can start behaving like borderlines, especially when they have a spouse who dies, because most likely they fornicated before marriage. So now the demons, even the bad ones, prior to meeting this person, had a legal right to transfer over. And now that the spouse is dead, the demons won't stay in a dead body. There may be some that are bound for whatever reason, but the majority then transfer over to the living spouse. And so now the living spouse is absolutely demon-possessed and tormented and brought to even destruction themselves because of the shame and the guilt and the insanity of those demons that came over. So if you know somebody like that, this is a terrible, terrible, I've said this and I'm going to say it again, borderline personality disorder is one of the worst things that evil ever inflicted onto a human being. Because in the fracturing of the soul and the fracturing of the mind, the battles in the mind, and the witchcraft, and the mind control, and the altering, the fracturing, the multiple personalities, the double-mindedness is so vast that they never really recover. If you look at the stats on borderlines, you'll find that less than 1% ever recover. Well, what is recover? What, to be on medication? So again, this is a time that we have to just rely on the Lord, because in our own comprehension and trying to analyze what we could have done, and then come against ourselves for the things that we did do, this condemnation only comes from the dark side. And in that condemnation comes toxic guilt and shame. And in that then we perish. Okay? And because there hasn't been deliverance established in the churches like they should have, then the recovery rate is extremely low. And just think of all the centuries that have gone by. Think of all the millions of people that have perished in anguish, not just from disease, not just from one group of people coming into another and wiping them out, one village or one country, but the infliction of insanity. I mean, also look at those of county facilities for the mentally ill, state facilities. I mean, they're vast. They're huge. I've talked about those that were established after the Civil War because of the mass wave of depression that came. Well, look at all the people who died. Look at all the people who were murdered. Look at all the blood that was spilled. I mean, the demons were absolutely in their heyday during the Civil War. You had brother killing brother. You had these horrible crimes that were being committed. Blood was being spilled. The lands were being cursed. That's one of the reasons, I was born in Pennsylvania. But, it was one of the 13 original colonies. We know Gettysburg, right? So we know there are great curses upon that state. And so there was a lot of stuff that I had to go through, which I know was part of my heritage, part of my bloodline. And then recently seeing, because of my coat of arms, that there was a connection with the Rosicrucian. Well, again, when we look at Deuteronomy 28 or Deuteronomy and others of the curses that come from God because of our disobedience, then those who do not systematically go through and clean themselves up then perish from it, and it carries on to the next generation. Okay? So I made sure that I didn't pass it on to my kids. I made sure that I didn't pass it on to my grandchildren. Once I had the knowledge of it, then I was proactive to do those things to cancel it out. All right, Julie, we got about 30 minutes. What do you want to go to next? Go ahead.
And that's it. On the curse thing that you just said. A lot of people may not understand that are Christians, but I'll guarantee you, anybody that's been in the occult or that is presently in the occult, you know all about curses, because those are easy to send after people, especially Christians. They're the easy ones to hit, and you know, because they don't do what they say they're going to do. They don't represent what they say they represent. But if you are sending curses, you are doing that. Just remember the rules. Remember, if it's bad, and you send it after someone who knows what they're doing, you can get it back 100-fold. Remember, that's the rules in witchcraft. So be very careful that you send it to someone who knows how to send it back. And some people do. So, but anyway, that is one of the things that a lot of witches that you meet don't, sit around cursing people all the time. Of course, you do have those that do, but most of them, a lot of them don't do that. But they know that the rules are that. I mean, that's just a rule in witchcraft, So you try to get people to understand that there's actually a downside to that. So you might not want to do it. But anyway, this anybody that does believe that these people running the governments are human, that you really need to go check into, because I'm telling you right now, they're not human. And you can call these things in a ritual. You can see demons that come in that are reptilians. Okay, they're not. It's not like they're a rarity. So if you've ever called in spirits, then likely you've seen one, and you do know they're real. Okay, and you do understand that they can cloak as human, because a lot of them do cloak as human. When you call them in, you think they're human, right? But they're not. And if they reveal who they really are, then you will see a reptilian or a reptile creature and not a human. So I would advise anyone who is going to vote. I personally, just from my standpoint, none of these people are human. And if you do say that you answer to the creator of the universe, you're going to have a lot to answer for if you vote for either side, because none of them are human. And people are saying Hillary has this wrong with her and that wrong with her. Her human body is completely messed up, okay? But what you're seeing a lot of is clones that are, the chip is going haywire, okay? They got to reset the chip. So that's what's happening with a lot of these weird incidences that are happening. It's her chip in the clone body is going off. So, but you'll notice that the clone bodies of her, she looks much younger. But when you see who she really is, she looks like an old raggedy hag. She's like the night hag, So, anyway, I would not vote for reptilians to be in. You know what? You've already voted them in all these years, and you see where it's gotten you. Ronald Reagan was a shapeshifter. Gerald Ford was a shapeshifter. Do you guys not get that? All these people were reptilians. They were hybrids. They weren't real. They weren't human. That's why your world right now around you, everything you see sucks, because they're not real. They're here to cause you demise and downfall, not make America great again. That's not the point. If they make America great again, that means that we all get our rights back, and all the laws that have been created since 1920 or 14 have to be abolished. That's the only way America's ever going to be great again, okay? It's not going to happen. So you're relying on reptilians who are only looking out for themselves and who are looking to rule this whole earth with no competition. That's who you're voting into office. And Scott, I know there are people out there, especially the people that call themselves Christians. They're like, there's no such thing as a reptilian. They have a book that actually tells them that there are hybrids. Goliath was one. Og was one. There were 5 brothers, right? And they have this book that tells them about these hybrids, and that even the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the fowl of the air, they were all, that these fallen angels committed sins against them. If you know what I mean. It says it right there in the book. And so there's your proof. It's all in the book. And then they turn around. I don't believe that. And it's ridiculous that these people say they don't believe something that's right there in the book. So therefore they don't believe that this can happen. So I don't know. There's going to be a lot of very, very shocked people. And by the way, if nobody knows who Tory Smith is, Tory Smith was a victim of being sodomized several times by Mike Pence. And I did say back, I think, a few months ago, watch out for the people in the state of Indiana, the senators, either Jim Banks or Mike Pence, because I said, you watch, come the summer, they're going to pull one of them out of the state. Be looking for Jim Banks and or, the governor, but be looking, and one of those guys is going to come out as like a running mate, or they're going to come out as, they're going to be a wild card. You'll see. Sure enough, what happened? There you go. Picked one out of the state that they came out of. Why? Because, see, this stuff was already planned. This was already planned. And I already was privy to some of that information, okay? And Tory knew all of this stuff. And he's been a victim of being sodomized by the very governor of Indiana, Mike Pence, is now running for vice president. You think they had to kill him? Why? Because he was telling everybody the truth. And he went to go have charges brought against him, and he went and testified that he's been victimized by these people, sodomized and raped by these people, and within 35 or 40 days he was dead. Because he was going to run for president, vice president, so they can't have Tory out there filing charges against the Indiana governor who's going to run for vice president. So it didn't matter that Corey's been a victim, been raped by these men, CIA, NSA, FBI. These men in this trafficking industry they've all gone in there and they've all done these things to him since he was a little kid. And they killed like 54 children in his presence when they were all strapped to tables and being sodomized and raped. This is the stuff that Tory looked at. This is the stuff that they did to him, and he was in the middle of by no choice of his own. Okay, so when I don't completely agree with everything Tory believed, but I understand what Tory was and who he was and what happened to him. And he was still a victim since he was a little child of that life. Okay, he was like 5 years old. And that stuff started with him and continued for the rest of his life. So he was, he had his own brokenness, his own broken heart and broken fragmented pieces that needed to be put back together. And Scott, I really hope that people will continue to talk about Tory's story and they will pass it on. He lent a lot of light on this darkness. He shed a lot of it, and I respected him a great deal because I was one of those kidnapped children, and I was taken and programmed at a base. I was one of those kids that was treated badly and done horrible things to. So I respected him because he actually came out and talked about this stuff, and he even shown his own heart in times of things that, he had been through himself. So I just want people to remember him and not let the light go out on what he talked about. And if you're afraid to speak out, then you need to get some deliverance, man. Because you know what? I don't know if you don't believe in the Bible, that's one thing. But if you do believe in that Bible, I want you as an assignment to go read the story of Moses in the Exodus, and I want you to read the story of David and Goliath, and I want you to read the story of Job and what he was brought out of that Satan did to him and everything he got back. Hit 10 times everything he ever had. I want you to understand that you are the child, if you belong to him, of the creator of the universe. Do you honestly think that your Father in heaven is going to allow these pigs to put one hand on you? Maybe you might have some hard times. And maybe at some point he will allow them to kill you. Okay? Because it's going to glorify him. And if you ask why and how, I can't tell you that right now because I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. Anyone that dies with Jesus on their lips is going to be glory and testimony to Jesus Christ and the power thereof. So you should not be afraid. You should be speaking out against these nasty, horrible reptilians that are raping and murdering children in this country every day. And by the way, NATO, Southcom, Northcom, DARPA, CIA, ICE, FBI, and don't forget NATO, and the Queen, the Crown's guard in Canada, her special whoever they are, all these people are involved in child trafficking and in raping and murdering children and getting paid for it. CEOs of major companies, Dish Network, Cargill, Taco Bell, all these people that own these major companies, most of them are all Halliburton, CEO of Halliburton. See, and I know who they are because I got history, okay, with some of these oil people, and they know what I'm talking about. So these people, these CEOs pay like $1 million so that they can murder the child they're raping. How sick is that, man? And this is the stuff that's going on. And you guys need to get really, really, really pissed off. I don't know why people aren't burning up their phone lines calling their governors. I can't believe people are so silent. Man, I'm on the phone to calling the governor of this state left and right if I need to know something. You guys need to be proactive. You need to be the thorn in their side, because you know what? Yeah, you might be put on some list, but trust me, you on a list. One of the lists, you on it. You just might change lists. And if you're on a list like me, I'm sure I'm on the red list. Okay, that means we're getting done. We're getting out of here early, unless our Father chooses differently. What's the big deal in that? Because if you read the book of Revelation, you probably don't want to be here anyway. So I encourage you to get a backbone, grow a backbone. And by the way, for those of you who have been helping Scott with love gifts tied to what offerings, however you call it, I'm not so good at all that because I've never been in that church stuff. But if that whoever's doing that, I personally want to say thank you to each one of you, because this man works. I can tell you that almost every morning when I wake up, I get an email or 2 or 3 from him, and they'll say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, this is how hard he works. He will stay up all night if he's on something, trying to find information, or he's built that man packer. He's building all this stuff. I mean, he is really, really dedicated to doing all of these things so that he can better serve the community and the people who come there, which he just had someone who was able to fly in, you know, from good old Texas and have a whole weekend of freedom. So whoever's doing that, you just helped set a man free. You just did that. I hope you guys know this, whoever's giving, because this man, I have never seen anybody that sits and worries as much as I do over the population of human beings, that sits and worries about what's going to happen to everybody, because we can't get to everybody to tell them and to free them and to get them delivered. So I just want to personally thank you myself. And whoever you are, if you have any jewelry, you need to call me so I can send it to you, and you will be getting a free gift. For those of you who have been helping him, you need to let me know if you're one of them, because I will be sending you something to say thank you, because you deserve it. So I just want to make sure that they know how much I appreciate them helping you as well.
Yeah, it's been, this was a concerning month, but we pulled through, and so we've got some more challenges, but we're going to make it. I know we are. So thank you. Before we wrap it up here, we got about 15 minutes. You'll probably notice on the website or on the Blog Talk pictures, I have some pictures of craft that have what appears to be lasers coming out of them. And Julie, you can throw your 2 cents in because you did some checking on it. I talked last week about the liquid laser that runs down through the middle of the aircraft, that for high-intensity destruction of structures, of other craft that can be focused and just sweep across the sky in an instant and take everything out. These things are real. They've been around a long time, and what we see here is only a fragment of what they really have. And so those are the pictures of that, as I was describing last week. And again, the liquid in it's kind of like, we'll just reference it to like battery acid. That once it's it expends out, then they just let it fall out, and then they bring in a tanker, and in mid-flight, and they refuel it again, and then they're ready again to continue. So it's really quite amazing. And I remember the interview of the two men that had brought it to that point. They were actually following the footsteps of their father, who was the inventor of it, or was the one who put it together. And when they asked him about these weapons, about being so advanced and everything else, and this interview was over 20 years ago, might have even been 30 years ago now. And they just said, well, this isn't anything. You're only seeing a small part. This is only stuff we're allowing you to see. We've got stuff that's absolutely amazing. Julie, you were talking about one of the weapons that was like a craft that was hovering, what was it, over the UK? Can you tell us about that?
It was a craft that was hovering over the Ukraine, and it was extremely large, and the word was the U.S. claimed responsibility for it and said it was theirs, and literally this death machine has the capability of shooting out, it looks like blue lightning, and you knew exactly what that was when I said that. It shoots out a blue lightning. It can literally wipe out, listen to me folks, not kidding you, an entire country in one day. And the range that it has is from horizon to horizon. Get it? Like a country like the Ukraine could be hit in one day and the whole thing's gone. What it does is it completely powderizes, we're down to powder, concrete, all concrete. It doesn't have to be where it hits. It does this for concrete for miles and miles and miles. It's turned to dust, and a human being is turned into the size of an infant within a second. I guess they suck all the liquid out of you. I don't know. But anyway, whatever's left of you is the size of an infant, and it can happen. It happens in 1 second. So, one. And that's it. You're done. So this is what I was told. Oh, and it melts steel on, like, immediately, molten down like that. So there you go. And they have this. And by the way, this particular one is put into the sea. It lives in a base under the ocean. So.
Also, too, you'll see a picture of a beetle, a very large one. Arizona deserts have those. Whenever the monsoons first come in, these guys come out. They're huge. If you're not used to them, they're pretty spooky. But anyways, so because of the electronics, the microcontrollers, that's, if you see the picture of him when it flashes by, that's sitting on his back, they've learned where to tap into to control them, so they can literally fly these things around like little drones. And that's how far advanced they are. I mean, this stuff's real. So you can imagine, what they do to humans, and we just need to be ready. When we talk about the mark of the beast and all this other stuff, with what we have now, there are many people who are already marked for that. There are those who are planned for it. Those who see with the knowledge of prophecy, the prophetic words that are in the Bible and how they've come true and how they've come to pass, then we know the history's been written. God knows all things. He's omnipresent, all-knowing, omnipotent. And so these things have been laid out. So the question again is, who are you? Who are you? Are you someone who is kind? Are you someone who is compassionate? Do you have love of your fellow man? Meaning humans. Are you just a nasty old coot that no one can stand being around you? See, the things that were done to us, the things that were injected onto us, projected, those things of curses, even when we were in the womb, was to alter and change you. Okay? God didn't make you evil. God wants you. He wants everyone to come to the understanding. He wishes none that should perish. So there's a decision made. So all this weaponry that we see, all this technology, is nothing compared to the dunamis, the power of God. But since His laws were written from day one, and that we've been given free choice, this is where we're at. Now, same thing with the fallen angels. Okay, they were angelic. They saw the wonders. They saw the incredible things, and they still made a choice and fell. So man's given a choice. Now, it's in that free will that when we come to God, because who would want to abuse their children to force them to love you? Well, they're not really going to love you. That doesn't work that way. And so it's through that free choice and that willfulness to come forward and Paul said if we have not love when we do our witnessing or we do our discipleships, that we are nothing but a clanging cymbal. But the other thing too is the fact that you have worth, the fact that you've been called, and it's no mistake that you are alive today in these end times. Understand, you were not called to be abused. Okay? When Scripture talks about turning the other cheek, it's when that person repents. Doesn't mean that you pay evil for evil, but you do not tolerate being abused. Do not allow it. Period. Because that's what breaks you. That's what hurts you. That's what taints you. Understand who you are, and move forth. All right. All right, Julie. One thing you want to close with before I finish it out?
Please don't forget to pray for the children. This month is very bad. Luciferian holidays, sacrifices. Just pray for the children. There's so many of them that, unlike me, never get rescued, and I just pray that they will find freedom and get rescued, because it was only because of my father that I'm actually here right now, because he went loaded for bear, guns, shotguns, his 6 guns, and he beat people's doors in until he got me back and threatened to kill a bunch of people. So that's the only reason I am alive right now. I know it. So I'm just asking that you pray for these children, that they will find a way out and someone will come and rescue them, just like I was rescued.
Yeah. I just can't even imagine. You go to a store, you go, wherever, and, there'll be a family, a mother with their little ones following behind. The other day, I had to wait at a door when the mother came through, and it was like a mother and the ducklings. There must have been 6 or 7 that followed behind her, and all one smaller than the next one. And, that's about as cute as it gets. And I'm constantly thinking that who in the world could harm such a thing, to do that to a child, the things that go on out there, and that tells you how evil these people are. Their conscience hasn't just been seared; they're the depths of Satan. These people aren't redeemable; they're cursed. They are there to steal, kill, and destroy. And so understand that evil truly is out there. Evil wishes to destroy you, and that's not what God had for us. That He brought the redemptive healing, the deliverance of Jesus Christ. And it's because the world rejected Him that we are in the position, because those who reject Jesus are cursed. And that's all we're trying to get you to understand. That if you lose your life in the service and the calling of what you've been called to do, that if you lose your life, you will save it. And those who try and save their life, meaning that you turn your back on God, you turn your back on Christ, then they will lose it. And we're talking about the second death. So just how important it is to understand the truth. And so there we go. That's just about all I can say. All right, well, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll be back on Wednesday. Tomorrow I'll be doing, again, the Freemasons, so join me on that. Good night.